Hi, everybody. Janice Whiting here with the Million Women Rising Wisdom Exchange, and I am super excited to be able to interview Serena Skinner. Her presentation at the event was just amazing, and she was diving into much more than this, but really plant medicine, which I find absolutely fascinating, going through my own health stuff and finding natural ways to heal myself where Western medicine failed me, which I'm sure Serena's going to have lots to say about that. So, Serena, welcome so much. And to get us started off, can you share your transformational work and the work you do with women? And I think you work with anyone, right?
I do.
Yes.
I do. I do work with anyone. So, as a background, I am a nurse practitioner. I started as a nurse and then went and got my master's for a nurse practitioner. And I've been in healthcare for 22 years now with primarily emergency medicine. And then about 3 years ago, I started learning a whole lot about plant medicine and what it can do. And it started with me doing continuing medical education, which is required. And I found one on psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms for those who don't know. And I became certified in that, ended up speaking at medical conferences, teaching other healthcare providers about what psilocybin can do for treatment resistant depression and anxiety. And I've kind of grown into the whole plant medicine field from there. And so now, I'm a certified psychedelic concierge. And what that means is, I have gone through an extensive training that teaches me about all of the different types of plant medicine, but it goes way beyond that, because the prep for something like that and the integration that follows is key to psychedelic medicine being very, very effective. And so I am I am like this whole across the board. Like, I understand the neuroscience and the medical side of it, but I also understand the medicines themselves and what these plants are doing.
Yeah, I look at your credentials and I think, wow. And it's so interesting. You're taking this nurse practitioner background, which you are currently doing work in that space and helping people. And now you're in the psychedelic concierge mindset coach. What brought these two worlds together for you?
Honestly, it was a personal experience of mine, and I had already done that certification that I had just talked about, as far as like being able to teach other healthcare providers. And then in my own personal life, my daughter hit a very, very rough phase. We had been trying to manage depression in her since she was 15. And when she turned 18 and 19, it just kind of spiraled out of control. Trying to transition into adulthood, going to college, even the separation of me and my ex-husband, all happening during that time. She was just not able to cope, and the antidepressants just weren't working, which is a very common theme for so many people. And knowing that, the side effects of antidepressants and everything that they do, from the flat affect to loss of libido and just people not feeling like themselves, I didn't want to just take her back to her nurse practitioner and increase the dose and increase the side effects. But it got to the point where she actually tried to commit suicide. She became very suicidal. And so, as a mother, you just understand the hate, the heartbreak and the ache that you have when your child is going through something like that. And so, we sat down and we had a family meeting, and I gave her the option of trying this, and she chose to do that. And we followed the John Hopkins protocols that were out there. And I will tell you, like, we tapered her off of her antidepressants and to make it safe. And we followed those John Hopkins protocols. And it's been 3 years now, and she has not had any type of suicidal thoughts. She's not back on any antidepressants. So no side effects. She's happy. She's healthy. She's actually getting married in a few months now. And
And you,
so that was such a significant event to me, understanding what the limitations were in Western medicine and how we compartmentalize everything. We don't ever treat the soul, and that's where psychedelic medicine really, really treated her.
wow.
And we facilitated what the psychedelics do, like in the brain with the neuroplasticity, to kind of reset those triggers in her brain that was really just antagonizing her anxiety and depression. And so I really, from that firsthand experience, had a true understanding of what the limitations of Western medicine was versus what psychedelics could do for other individuals and my daughter and myself.
I'm really curious, and this might be too big of a question to dive into here in this conversation, but um, without revealing too much, we're kind of dealing with some of that here in my life,
Yeah.
and I'm really curious, how does it work? Like how do you make sure people are safe in this journey?
Okay. So
I know
that's
this is a
actually
big question.
that's a really good question, because that is one of the biggest, most important questions that somebody would need to ask if they're seeking any type of uh, psychedelic care. I think the first thing is, one, you have to understand that a lot of your doctors are not going to understand psychedelic medicine because it is such an emerging field. Unless they have taken some extra course in it, your doctor is not likely going to have the full scope of knowledge needed to guide you properly. Finding somebody who is certified in psychedelics, like through a psychedelic concierge, is going to be super, super important, because they are literally going to be your guide to help answer all of your questions. The other thing is understanding that one plant medicine may work for somebody else, and it may not be the appropriate thing for you and what you're going through. What we may choose for one person on that has depression would be completely different for somebody who has addiction problems. And each of these medicines can come with their own set of risks. So it's understanding what those risks are. Some of them have minimal risks, like psilocybin has it. All of them have some risk, as all anything we ingest or consume
Okay.
does.
Western medicine.
Exactly. But understanding what those potential side effects are, understanding what it is you're exactly trying to treat, understanding that if you are on prescribed medications, certain of those medications are not going to play well with plant medicine. And this is why it's really, really important to find somebody who is certified in some of these, or somebody who's very, very experienced in the plant medicine realm. Also, I fully believe that educating yourself, or your guide educating you, is critical in the process of how effective something is. And just going through the whole process. And so if you're going to do a lot of research all of those different things, like what is it that you're trying to treat for yourself or your family member? What medications are you taking that may interact with them? How long does one of these sessions last? But like, another big thing is, like, what kind of support and integration do you have as a follow-up? Because the plant medicine itself sets the scene, but the integration that follows is where the change really, really happens.
Okay, I think that's a really important distinction, is that it's not just doing the plant medicine, but it's the integration. I know that you said in one of your videos, and I hope I'm quoting this right, transformation is not the experience. Transformation is what happens after the experience.
That is absolutely correct. So, with any type of plant medicine, what happens in the brain is, it creates an open window of neuroplasticity. And for anybody who doesn't really understand what that means, is we have these neural pathways in our brain that's basically where our thoughts and our patterns and everything travel. And when we think the same thoughts, or we have the same behaviors, we have the same patterns, it's the same as if we are lifting weights. The repetition with weight is going to increase our muscle mass. And the same thing is with our neural pathways. The more we think those thoughts, the stronger those pathways are going to get, the harder they are to break. So what plant medicine does is it creates a new open window of neuroplasticity, and the default modal network within the brain, which controls our rigid and repetitive thinking of, I am this way because, or I can't do this, or any of those I statements. It's kind of like the center of me. The default modal network, which is really rigid, kind of like goes quiet. And what happens when the default mode network goes quiet in the brain is that rigidity of those thoughts softens, and you're actually able to create new thoughts. And those new thoughts actually create new neural pathways. And it's fascinating to me. Imaging on like MRIs and things like that can actually show new neurons actually growing and connecting to each other during the process of psychedelics. Now, the the other thing, like when that default mode network goes kind of quiet, what happens is all the other regions of the brain that are not even normally speaking to each other begin communicating in a global aspect. And that's where like higher incidences of creativity and these new thoughts and different outlooks are actually able to start to form in the mind, because it's all communicating together to create a completely different, beautiful experience while that default modal network is kind of resting and tampered down. And that's why the integration is going to be important, because once the psychedelic medicine wears off, that default mode network kind of ramps back up. And if we don't do anything to basically lift the weights on those new neural pathways, and then all of our old, stronger pathways are going to take back over. And so anything that we clean there is going to start to fade away. And that's why the integration portion is so critical to any type of lasting transformation and embodiment, is because we have to continue to work those new neural pathways.
Okay, so and again, if I'm asking a question that's too big and like Janice, I just can't answer that right now. I am very, very curious, like what would I experience if I said, "Hey, I'd like to try this." What would the process be? Is it like several sessions? Is it when you say integration? I love neuroscience, by the way. I mean, all of that just like lights up my brain and says, "Yay, I love that." But I'm really curious about, you know, I know we can rewind. I know you got a puppy. Do you need to go have quiet?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Awesome. Got the puppy taken care of and the doorbell handled and all of that. So
Well,
now let's get back to neuroscience and rewiring your brain. I find this so fascinating. Okay, so the what we were talking about is how does this work? Because I'm really curious how this works because I do know rewiring our brain I'm just really curious how like what would this be like if I came in and I saw you and got some help?
okay, so it really kind of depends on, what it is you're wanting to address,
Okay.
and also like which plant medicine that we're choosing for you.
Okay.
So like just like with the instance of my daughter. So because I followed those protocols, we did a total of 3 sessions about 6 weeks apart. And what we did is, I had some prep work for her, because the whole thing around psychedelic medicine and healing and transformation is called set and setting, and that means mindset and what kind of setting are you in during the episode. And so those are two very big important things. So the set or the mindset is what I give like people prep work for. So we have an initial discussion, and we agree to work with each other. They fill out a questionnaire for me, and then that kind of guides me on what kind of prep work that I need to have them do. But something that is consistent across the board is, I make sure they understand like the basic neuroscience behind what's happening when they are in psychedelic medicine, because I'm a firm believer that the more we understand something, the more efficacious it's going to be in the long run. So everybody goes through some type of, minor education about what's actually going to happen. And then also like what to expect based off of which plant medicine they're choosing to use, like making sure they understand, is there any requirements such as diet or journaling, things like that prior. And then I also, I ask everybody a series of questions based off specifically off of what they're trying to accomplish with this. And so, like, if it was some type of trauma, I have them write out what they think and feel about that trauma, not filtered, not what they're trying to achieve, just what they think and feel about what's going on right now. And then, on the day of the plant medicine, this is where setting comes in. It's, very critical about what type of environment they're in, even lighting, the type of music. Do they feel safe with the person that's with them? All of these things matter and contribute to how a person experiences that psychedelic trip. And so what I do during the trip, I wait until they're kind of like at the peak of medicine, and then we take that list of questions that they kind of wrote out, and during that open window of neuroplasticity, we reframe their answers to something to make it easier to cope with or to process trauma or to release things. And we reframe those answers while they're under the highest form of neuroplasticity.
Okay.
And then they can write it down, and, it's in their workbook that they have to reference afterwards. Um, and, during this, depending on, again, like which medicine you use, you can have like psychedelic geometrics, you can have some physical sensations. There's a lot of like heart opening. There may even be crying or laughing, release of emotions, different things like that. And it's all going to vary based off of each individual's personal experience and which plant medicine they're on. And then after the plant medicine wears off, we kind of go over all of this just briefly, make sure that they don't have any questions, they don't have any major concerns. This is where integration starts. It's literally right after. And making sure that there is a plan in place for integration in the coming weeks. And so we'll already have integration sessions set up prior to them going into plant medicine, but just to make sure that they don't have any questions about their immediate response to their session. And then in the following weeks, they'll have journaling prompts. And then I also use subliminal audios and breath work and meditations to help integrate during that open window of neuroplasticity, because the neuroplasticity window stays open for, on average, about 3 weeks following a psychedelic medicine session. And so that's a huge, huge opportunity to kind of like take the work that they did during that session and really, really just start lifting the heavy weights with it and build those strong neural pathways so that they get like lasting and consistent changes for whatever it is that they're seeking. And so I use all of those different tools in the process to just help with the integration.
That's just really fascinating to me. So you were saying like when you do a psychedelic, you're kind of like all your brain talks to each other. And I, I, I well, I'm not going to say yes or no what I've done in my life, but I remember that's not recorded conversation, girl. But I remember doing going under for some teeth work, and I remember thinking, "Oh my God, I wish I could have recorded." all the things that were going on in my head because it was like literally I came up with answers to things and then, but they didn't stay. It's almost like this dream state where so do you record or do you write? How did we capture that for people?
Oh, well, so like when they're in that psychedelic state, I actually encourage them that, to record themselves on their phone, have a conversation with themselves. Like they don't have to have the conversation with me. And when I went and did ayahuasca, that was a huge, huge thing for me. I sat there and I recorded the things that I was feeling and the thoughts that I was having. And because, sometimes when you're in it, it doesn't all make, like, it doesn't all flow at the same time, but at the same time, it does. And, it's kind of hard to explain that phenomenon if you haven't been in it. And that's why I tell people, because some of it will be fleeting in the moments afterwards and coming out of it. So when they record themselves on their phone, they're giving themselves like their own video journal of what the experience is. And then they also have that as a tool to go back and listen to and watch and kind of like really think about the things that was transitioning during that moment. And then as far as the other things, like, the subliminal audios, one of the things I do is I can, like, if I'm working with somebody specific, I create like a very custom subliminal audio based off of what it is that they're trying to achieve. So I'll create a custom subliminal audio for them to listen to. And it's always set to like soft music or white noise. So you can listen to it at any point in time. The, 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 the words that they're listening to is on a subconscious level. It's at a level that we're not consciously registering it, but our subconscious is registering it, which is kind of important because our conscious mind a lot of times will resist the idea of change, where our subconscious is more open to it when it's in certain states. And so I always encourage them to kind of listen to it as they're going to sleep, because it's interesting that you mentioned kind of like that sleep state, because that is when we're coming out of sleep and when we're going to sleep. That's when we are most susceptible to other thoughts. And so I always encourage them to play it as they're like kind of going to sleep or while they're asleep, because it has like that, like I said, that white noise or soft background noise. And so it's nothing that should keep them awake. And then, journaling is always a tried and true method. And just answering like all of these different questions. We have integration sessions. So we'll be on a Zoom just like this, and we can go over any questions or concerns, any insights they may have, helping them just kind of process everything that has gone on. Because, from my own personal experience too, things do kind of come up over the weeks that following, and they may just need that extra support. And don't ever feel bad about reaching out to somebody, because that's what we're here for. We're here for that integration process. And it's I teach them breath work. They'll have access to recorded meditations, and like I said, they'll have their custom subliminal audios. All of these tools that go into facilitating the work that the plant medicine started.
Interesting. And this is kind of a little fast tracking versus talk therapy, right? Like we're kind
Yeah.
of fast tracking
This
stuff.
this reaches a level in the brain that talk therapy just can't.
Okay.
Um, you know, there there's a lot of therapists who are coming right into this plant medicine realm, because they understand what the limitations are within the mind and how it processes. Whereas the plant medicine, we literally just kind of bypass the things where the brain is resisting, um, with just general talk therapy. I still encourage them to do their normal therapy if they've been in it and they're doing it. Um, Absolutely, it hits it on a different level with plant medicine.
Really fascinating. I'm really just very curious about this. And this leads me to my next question. So, this Million Women Rising Wisdom Exchange is we're really talking to women who are in that midlife and beyond. So, we're heading into our 50s, our 60s, 70s, and maybe even 80s. So, can this help women and how do you think it can step in and help women at this point in time in their life? We've been talking a little bit like depression stuff, but there's all kinds of other things this can
Oh,
help with. I want to make sure that the women listening understand that this isn't just about depression. This is about so much more.
Oh yeah, see, and like you're getting me excited just with this question because the research is showing so much more. Because it's not just about anxiety and depression. Even as we age, they're doing all of these studies and trials with Alzheimer's and dementia patients, and how with that new neurogenesis, like it's really combating neurodegenerative diseases. Um,
Really?
and it's amazing what the science is showing with it. But going beyond that, what they're also seeing is that it is extending the life of our cells. Like it's cleaning up our cells, making them behave better. But it like, and this is with psilocybin primarily right now with what I'm talking about. It's cleaning up our cells. But then it extends the life of each individual cell up to 57%, and it's also extending our telomeres. And what if somebody doesn't know what a telomere is it's like these shoestrings on certain aspects of our DNA, and it talks about our biological and genetic health. And the longer the telomere is, the more likely you are to live longer and be happier and healthier. And so it is being looked at for anti-aging, brain health. It's even treating like insulin resistance because it's helping repair those cells. So they're looking at it with insulin resistance and diabetes and fatty liver. And there's just so many different things that are coming up with the science that it is not going to be just one aspect of health. And and even like from a hormonal aspect, we're talking about this age group of women where we're going into menopause and dealing with all of the just the physical and emotional strife of living within ourselves in that aspect. But then so many of us in this age are in that sandwich profile where we're still raising some kids, but we have aging parents as well, and reducing the amount of stress in the body, making us more resilient, giving us more creativity in how to deal with life, and just doing an honest reset. And all while it's helping manage our home hormones and make our skin look good too.
Oh,
It's
man.
amazing.
Well, so is this something that, like, would you do it on Zoom? Like, or does somebody need to come into your office?
So there's different aspects to do it. So, and it all depends on which ones that they use. A fair amount of them, yeah, we can do it on Zoom. I do like to work with people like during their session. I try to get with people at their setting. And a lot of times we do it in their home because that's where they're comfortable. They can have their couch or their blanket or whatever it is. But we could do it over Zoom as well. There's absolutely nothing to say that we couldn't. um, and then all of like the integration and the prep work and everything is all over Zoom.
Okay. I think I'm thinking Janice's sense of humor. I'm thinking telomere spa, cell spa. I'm actually in my head thinking like, instead of going and getting a facial, go get a little reset, right? And it's this stuff, this cellular renewal. So, I think it was Dave Asprey, one of the biohacking people. They said in the next 10 years, if you can get to the other side of 10 years, medicine will have changed so radically in the next 10 years that there's a good chance you're going to live longer and healthier than expected rates right now. So this is part of taking care. I'm really interested in that telomere thing because that is huge in longevity and your functioning. And I've been into cellular renewal and trying to understand how do we, make new healthy cells because that's it. We replace our eyes. I don't know the exact name, but it's like our eyes are replaced every so many weeks. Our heart is replaced so many months. Our hair, our skin is replaced. Our liver, our body is regenerative. And this
Our bodies completely regenerate every 7 years, every like a whole new body every 7 years.
Right. So if this, I'm really excited about the science around this and looking forward to where it's going to go for aging and
Yeah,
longevity.
well, and we all know that stress is the number one killer. I mean, it's the number one lead to like autoimmune disorders and heart disease and all of these other things. And like this is a reset for stress when we're looking at plant medicine. Like that is and reduces inflammation as well. Top two things of disease is stress and inflammation, chronic inflammation.
Yes. Yeah, that is so true. So true of all of what I learned because, I went through in my early 50s, I went through menopause, shutting down a corporation, and just, I mean, the stress level was like through the roof, and I thought I was completely broken. And, it just, thank goodness I didn't find what you're doing, but I found other natural, because Western medicine basically looked at me and said, well, you are getting old.
Yeah,
And I,
yeah, and that's what I absolutely like. There's certainly a place for Western medicine, but like the limitations and how it compartmentalizes people, and it's it has driven me crazy for several years now. So I absolutely know what you're talking about.
and you work in it every day. I mean,
Yeah,
you've got, I love
again,
you've got both sides of it. You have this heavy, working in that space, but now you have, I mean, well, not now, but you have this other side, which is very powerful. I think that these are the kinds of things that we need to be looking for that are outside of Western medicine that can help us with. And I had a conversation with someone a few hours ago, and we were talking about one of the things that happens as we get older is these things that through the busyness of life, we're raising children, we're working, we're building careers, we've got this, we got that, and all of a sudden we kind of hit this place in our life where it's almost like a lot of these past things, trauma, all these stories and all these things kind of bubble up to the top. And
hmm
we're just ready to get rid of them. We're ready to rewire our brains. We're ready to have the next 20 years just rock and roll hard and just have a great time, right?
yeah, it's not a midlife crisis anymore. It's a midlife reset.
I love that. Oh, okay. I'm having a midlife reset right now. That's what I'm gonna. So number one, I just want to make sure. If someone's watching this and thinking, I really want to explore more about what this is, and how can they get a hold of you?
So the new company is called the Liminal Soul, and it's named that because the liminal space is the space in between, and it's the space of who we've been and where we're going. And so, and our soul goes through that process multiple times in its lifetime through all the different transitions. And so people can visit the liminalsoul.com, and it has just a whole lot of information about integration and transformation embodiment. And it has psychedelics as just one of the tools that we use. But if people want to get a hold of me, just click the button that says start a conversation, and that's how we start.
Awesome. I'm going to be putting that in the comments, so you guys will be able to find that easy. Um, so I don't, maybe you can, but I always like to give the listeners like a practical something that they can maybe integrate right now that, will help them. So if we're thinking about mindset, we're talking about reset. What's something somebody could do outside of using, psychedelics? What's something they can possibly do today that might shift something for them?
Right. So the biggest thing, like when what I tell anybody when they're in any moment that seems like overwhelming or they're just too stressed out, we talk about breath work. Because like when we're looking at the physiology, the anatomy and physiology of a human body, we can completely reset our fight or our fight or flight response through breath work. And so it's as simple as slow 4 breaths in through the nose, hold for 2, 6 out. And you can just repeat that. And what that does is it stimulates in the brain to come out of fight, and then just kind of go back into like a calm presence. Another thing that they can do to kind of manipulate that fight or flight is humming. So humming for 3 minutes, and it doesn't matter what the tune is. It's the act of humming and that vibration against the vagus nerve right here in the neck will actually reset that fight or flight. Journaling, I'm all about the video journaling because like my brain goes so fast a lot of days that my pen just can't keep up. And some days I'm trying to read if I wrote something down and I'm like, what was I thinking? Whereas if I choose to video myself, I'm gonna get it. All of the information is going to be there. And it's a matter of, understanding that the world is not going to stop if you stop and take these breaths. The world is not going to stop if you're, going to the break room and humming for 3 minutes, or, hiding in the bathroom from the kids, humming for 3 minutes. Like, none of it's going to stop. Everything will be okay. And just knowing when, you're at a point where you need to reach out for help versus the things that you can handle on your own.
Awesome. I think that it's always such a good, I forget, and then I'll jump on a call like this, and somebody will be like, "Let's take a deep breath," and I'm like, "Oh God, I haven't taken a deep breath in like hours."
No, we're just so busy we forget that deep breath.
Yeah, I do know too. I learned, and I do this now, is especially we live in a typical Utah house where you come in the bottom floor and there's bedrooms, and then you actually live upstairs, and it's Utah houses are weird. Um, but like intentionally going outside and putting my feet on the ground. Just
Absolutely. I do that every single day, every day.
yes, yes. Well, okay, so we're gonna put that link in there. So I have one last, it's kind of a question, but it's kind of like finish the sentence. Women come to me when they are, whatever it is, and after working with me, they are, or they experience, or they have. So what I want to hear is kind of why would someone come to you? How would somebody know it is time to call Serena right now? Pick up that phone, get on that line, get a conversation.
So yeah, we've kind of touched on some of this already, is most often the women that come to me are the ones who feel like they've lost themselves. And, I've hosted previous retreats called the Everything Woman because we're everything for everyone else but ourselves. And they get to that point in life where they just don't recognize themselves anymore, whether it be from the everyday stressors, everything that you give to being a mom or a wife, and, the hormonal changes, whatever it is, they're just feeling lost themselves, and that usually results in them having anxiety and depression, or all of these other feelings that they're just having a hard time processing. And so that's usually when they come to me, because I have gone through my own transformation of all of that as well. Like, I know deep down what it's like to be the mom and the wife and go through the divorce, and to lose somebody, and any of these things where somebody is just feeling overwhelmed, is when they usually come to me. And then afterwards they just feel a sense of actually just being able to take that deep breath again. It's almost like they couldn't take that deep breath because everything was so heavy on them, and even just feeling like they can breathe again and have a little bit more clear mind to where they can make decisions and not be overwhelmed by them. That's the success of working with me.
I think that's so, I mean, I think about this stage of life, this latter stage of life and navigating it. And, I've shared this before, but I mean, I was going through menopause, and my mom didn't go through because she had a hysterectomy. My sister didn't go through it. She had a hysterectomy. No one around me had gone through and could really help me and guide me. And I just this is our time to we're we've got the kids more or less out of the house unless they move back in. We've got the husband, the relationships kind of tend to be settled down, and our careers are kind of settled down, and this is the time we should be living our best lives. We should use the word thrive on a regular basis. So
To me, it's all about coming into peace with yourself.
I love that, like peace, joy, just this is the So, I was going to launch onto a whole other conversation, but we're going to wrap up. But I just thank you so much for being part of the Million Women Rising Wisdom Exchange. Your contribution has just been incredible, and I think that this is, you know, as every stage of our life, we need a toolbox, right? We need tools to be able to manage whatever life is throwing at us. When you had children, you needed help understanding. When you got married, you needed help. When you know what I mean? So we're now in this stage of life where we need a different set of tools. And this is one of them. So I hope you will reach out to Serena. Serena, do you have any closing advice or wisdom to share?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is understanding that there is options outside of Western medicine to to feel like yourself again, to find answers within yourself, to heal the soul in a way that others just don't understand or can't talk about.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. All right, everybody. We'll catch you later.
Bye. Thank you.